as a good leader or whoever you're working on, you want to share, this is the team. So that's why I do a lot of shout outs, and this is what they're doing. This is the epic work. And I think I have so much great, I'm just so proud of my team that it's hard for me not to like write a long thing, because they do awesome work.
Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me here, Ben. Excited.
You bet. Well, I'm excited for today's subject, but before we dive in, Andrew, could you maybe share a little bit about your background and what you love about content and marketing?
Sure. So as we were talking about earlier, I've been in the marketing space for, 15 plus years or so. I've worked with those pre-revenue companies backed by some big names like A16Z, all the way up to where I've been on the spectrum where I was a CMO for a 400 million ARR company that grew up to 500 million, but really found, I'd say, my sweet spot with orgs that have found product market fit. So between the 3 and 8 million, and helping them grow from there to the 50 or 100 million mark. But I think that's quick high level of my background. I love content marketing because I kind of started more on the SEO and the technical side, and then found beyond just, organic ranking, there's an actual use case for this on, thought leadership, on driving real revenue and sales, and not just the numbers that we keep seeing like going up and up and up because we ranked for a keyword.
I love that. Well, today we're going to talk about a subject that I would be shocked if you have ever not run into this as a content marketer, and that is getting buy-in and having those internal conversations with your business about the importance of content, what you're going to do with it, ultimately what the end objective is. So Andrew, looking at this, you've been at that table a ton of times, probably on the receiving end of pitches, on the giving side of things. When it comes to internal buy-in, what's like the number one thing you can do to like really convince other leaders, especially in other departments, about just how important content really is?
Yeah. So that's a great question. I wouldn't say that there's any, silver bullet, it's like this one thing fixes everything, it's more of a consistency aspect. And what I mean by that is you have to constantly communicate what the team is doing. There's so many times as marketers, we're focusing on the business side and the operations of that and making sure that we're driving those leads in. But at the same time, the other departments don't really know what we're doing. That you always hear the joke that, oh, yeah, marketing might be doing all these things, but they're mostly just painting pictures and coloring and drawing and, the fun stuff. What are they actually doing to move, the needle forward? And if you're not actively communicating internally for other departments, they're not going to know, because we're all so focused on our little, fiefdoms that it's, yeah, we're doing so much. Everybody must know, but they don't. They have no idea because they're also working on their areas. So one of the core things that I do is I send out a weekly communication. I think that's one of the easiest things that anybody can start doing. If you're on the leadership side, that's great because you can send it directly to the other, leaders, and also send a second email to all the different departments and your team. So that's what I currently do. So on a weekly cadence, I break it up into a very simple email, something that I know they can, jump through and read in about 5 minutes. I don't want to give them a novella, going through every single thing there. I start with the very first thing, which is the most important thing, is this is our North Star metric. This is the one key metric that we're focusing on. And that's usually a revenue number because we're focusing on, growth and marketing and showing how we're, contributing to the organization. But this is our number, whether that's MQLs, whether that's revenue, whether that's pipeline, whatever it is, as a team, this is our focus. And then under there, after I finish that section, then I jump into, these are the key things that we've done this week. These are some of the big wins. So 3 to 5 things in bullet points, just so that they can quickly digest them. After that, then I break down, kind of a shout out to the team, because there's always somebody that's gone above and beyond, whether that's on my team on the marketing side, or if there's somebody that's helped us in another department. It's great to build that interdepartmental relationship by calling them out and sharing that. And then finally, here are the challenges that we're facing, and just being transparent. This is a roadblock. This is what we're hitting. This test that we just ran, it didn't work. It unfortunately failed. But what were our learnings? And then this finally is what we're going to be focusing on next week. And a quick recap. So like I said, first I send it all to the exec team so that they can read it, and then to the rest of my department, and then open myself up for questions. When we jump on a call later on, if they don't email me, other departments know generally what we're working on now. They can say, hey, so how'd that go? I wanted to dive into that. I had a question. Or I've made myself more accessible to everybody by letting them directly email me or Slack me, whatever they want to do. If you're not actually at a leadership standpoint yet, or you're not running a team, there's still really useful things that you can do to communicate, the impact that you're making. So I'd love it if, my direct reports would send me a weekly recap, and it's not necessarily me, because I don't talk about me, as a good leader or whoever you're working on, you want to share, this is the team. So that's why I do a lot of shout outs, and this is what they're doing. This is the epic work. And I think I have so much great, I'm just so proud of my team that it's hard for me not to write a long thing, because they do awesome work. But if you're an individual contributor, write some brief notes. This is what I did this week. These are some major impacts that, we've done as a team to hit my core North Star metric or my OKR or whatever I'm, owning. And then sharing that with your leader, who I'm sure would want to share that out with other departments and be like, hey, this is what they did. Or next time they're sitting in front of the CEO, hey, what's this person doing? What's this person doing? You have those notes right there for you, and you can just, relay them. So that internal marketing part, I think, is crucial, but it's also very lacking, because we don't feel fully confident in sharing everything internally. We want to just focus on our work, and that's it. But if you don't share it, unfortunately, that's the first group that they're like, what's the value that they're bringing here? And it's difficult.
I love that. And I love that call out with managing up. I think there's such a cool opportunity there. It doesn't matter what your position is. There's always an opportunity to manage up, share things across the departments, across to your boss, across to your coworkers. Let them understand, even if you're in the same department, they might not even have any idea, especially in marketing, of what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish and how to collaborate. So I really, really love that. The next question is, when you're trying to get budget, right? So I love this framework. We've got alignment. People know what we're doing. They know what our North Star metric is. It's really cool. Now, when you're going to the top and you're saying, okay, this year's budget or this next quarter's budget, however you manage it, we're going to spend X amount of dollars into content. And a portion of this is going to be on the top of funnel side of things. How do you approach getting budget buy-in from certain individuals that have budget approval?
Coming from a growth background, everything that I work on is very numbers driven. And even from the content standpoint, you can typically write out a hypothesis at the beginning of why we're moving forward with that initiative. So I think a good example is when we do a lot of our initial content for any org, we usually focus on bottom of funnel content, but that's specifically from an organic standpoint, where people understand that they have a pain point and they're looking for a solution, because that could be the most easily attributable type of content. So with that, we're able to kind of mock up a forecast saying, this is our current baseline of people coming through organic content. And I use content here from an SEO standpoint because that's where my mind goes, and I can track it and also follow that down the funnel, and there can be revenue numbers attributed to that. So I'm able to jump in there and say, okay, this is the traffic that we're typically getting. This is the baseline. We're getting this much already through organic, and that's converting usually at this percentage. And so there is usually a follow through and pipeline. And then our goal, because you're always pushing, right? Every quarter you got to do better. You got to do better. You got to push further. So I can make a forecast saying, if we do these specific tactics, we put this in place, we anticipate an uptick by this much in our organic traffic, or whatever sources that we're focusing on. And that should help hit this number. I do that though with every channel that I work on. Every quarter you have to submit kind of a budget, to the CEO and get approval. But the way, and I stole this term from Noah Kagan, who I used to work with at Sumo. He calls it quant-based marketing. And you start with a number at the end. And even though every single piece of content that you put together isn't going to hit a number, you can still bucket it, and that it's going to help in other areas. But with quant-based marketing, you have your end goal, you break that down into quarters, and then within those quarters, you have the tactical areas that you expect to give you that return. So you could say, your paid is going to generate this much, and that's the expected return on there, based off your North Star metric, right? Your content, so just organic content, general content marketing efforts is going to drive this much. And, and you break that down for everything. Usually there's a delta, and that's where you make your other campaigns. And you say, okay, this is going to make up the delta there. But based off of this, if you have your unit economics, if you've gone into the breakdown of, cost per lead, cost, as they go through MQL, SQL, and finally convert, then you can say, we need this much because we invested this much. This gave us this. You need to double this so that if you want to hit a double number, you can do that. So that's how I walk through. I mean, that's a lot to digest really quickly, but that's how I break everything down so that I can justify, yeah, we need to put the money in here so that we can get this output.
I love that. And with your background heavily focused on AI as well, I kind of want to steer the conversation in this direction. Obviously, when you're having internal conversations and you're getting budgets and things like that, I'm sure the conversation and, the question will come up. And if you haven't received it, you're going to get this question eventually. How is AI impacting how we do content? How do you navigate those waters? How do you use AI? Like, what are some of your responses to that kind of question that people, I'm sure, are asking internally about content creation?
Yeah. The way that I like to frame using AI, but specifically like LLM models, is that you should look at it as a sophisticated assistant. That's about it. So it's maybe that apprentice that is joining you. They can go do a lot of research. They can put together basic information for you, but you need to proof it. You need to edit it. You need to add those higher value items inside there before just pushing publish. With Google now updating the algorithm where it is enforcing that the content shouldn't just be 100% created by an AI, it has to actually drive value. I think all that's doing is taking us back to the core of why we even create content. And those people who just wanted to jump on the bandwagon and say, okay, I can push out all this content, immediately, that is very, I think, resemblant of old school, like black hat, techniques where what you're doing, you were just scraping and, changing a word here and there. So it's just basically making sure that we have high value content at the end of the day and making sure that it's created for human intent and human consumption. You can use AI to help you expedite some of the brainstorming, expedite the production side of it, but you have to have the human element in there. And I've talked to so many people, like the lead growth marketer at Coefficient. I had her, Hannah, on my show the other day. And one of the things she was talking about was having an human-led content machine, with AI support in there. And that's how they were going about replicating it. And it's a similar story that I saw at other organizations as well, like Process Street, and who I talked to the CEO, Vinay, on the show as well. And one of the things he did mention was, AI is helping us expedite the amount of content that we're producing, but we still have all these editorial processes on top of there to make sure that is bringing in unique statistics, unique value that, people can't just easily replicate. So again, it's for human consumption, but you have AI as your assistant to kind of support it.
I love that. And it makes sense that like people are going to ask, well, can it reduce my head count? Can it cut the costs? Can it speed things up? Right. And I love that. It's like, hey, it's not going to necessarily reduce headcount, but it is another tool. It's another opportunity for us to really expand our capabilities and write better content. Yeah. But I love the focus on quality to say, hey, it's not a quantity play. It's not meant to make content faster. It's meant to make content better. It's allowing me to have a research assistant who can help me do this, this, and this. One of my favorite things to do is like publish something in there and say, what did I get wrong? Like, what did I miss? Right. Like, what didn't I talk about? And have it go through and be like, oh, hey, you didn't actually bring up this whole subject. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Let me go after it. Let me go do that. Or like, how could I make this better? Or, things of that nature where, again, it's not going to make me that much faster per se. It might, but the quality is good. I one of my favorite things also is if you got a list, you're like, well, help me use alliteration here. I feel like it needs some that, or how do I use rhyming, or how do I sound a little more formal here? Like you can use it. And I think there's some really cool advantages of that. And so I love that. I love that you're having that approach. And I'm guessing there's a lot of education involved internally about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think if anything, having the ability to use these LLM models has pushed us to make sure that our content is even better than it was in the past. There were always like those levels of entry, like with Brian Dean from Backlinko. He talked about having those skyscraper posts, and you go out there and you build that out, right? And you just make it a little bit better than the last post in there. But that's now table stakes. Yeah, you can do it a little bit better, but with these LLM models, they're pushing us to have something even better. What are additional media types that we can incorporate into these content pieces that aren't easily replicable? What are, other, interesting interactive elements that you can build into your content piece that, again, isn't easily replicable, but it's all adding value. So if anything, I think the incorporation and introduction of AI as public facing consumer product is making us as content marketers be even better and up level our game. I think it's really exciting to have tools like that.
I love it. Well, as promised, the time goes by super quick, and it's amazing how quick these go. But we love having the short format so people can listen to this on their commute or in between meetings, things of that nature. But Andrew, thank you so much for your insights. How can people connect with you and listen to your podcast or connect with you online, things of that nature?
Right. So I'd say the best place to connect with me is just on LinkedIn. You can find me under there as Andrew Monnier. And that's my primary platform. I don't really use anything else. I mean, I have podcast, newsletter, but go there. And then from there, you'll be able to find your way everywhere else.
I love it. Well, Andrew, again, thank you so much for the time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.